I'm the Rifter, and this is a tutorial that was requested a few days ago. No one sent me a photo to edit, so I figured I would edit one of the photos that were taken today. My wife and I went to the park and decided to take a few more maternity photos. And I'm not trying to say this is like the best framing or anything like that, but I'm going to show you how I edit photos in Lightroom, because this photo is kind of flat and it doesn't really pop. I mean, there's a lot that can be done to it, but I'm gonna do very minimal things that you probably wouldn't think of. So anyway, just to get started, this was shot at sunset. So my camera was on auto white balance, and by the way, I'm editing a RAW photo. I'm not editing a JPEG. And my camera wasn't on full auto. I had it on aperture priority because I wanted a lot of light hitting the sensor, so I wanted to use a wide aperture. Anyway, so the first thing I'm going to do is change this to 5200 instead of 5000, because that'll kind of give me the mood or the light that it was kind of in. Now, you can do 5200 or you can do 5500. Studio flashes are rated at 5500, which that will give you the color you're seeing at noon, which would be 5200. That's what I'm going to do, so it kind of brings out the sunset tone. Next thing I'm going to do, oh, and by the way, I'm using the histogram up here to edit this photo. Usually, when you're professionally editing, you will have your screen calibrated. I don't know what happened to my screen calibrator, so I'm not going to go off of how this looks by vision, even though that is the main purpose, is to get it to look good. But this histogram, as long as you go off of this, it should look good by the time you're done. So after the light temperature, tint looks fine to me. It's not leaning too far purple or too far green, so, or magenta and green, whatever you want to call it. But the next thing I'm going to do is hit up the exposure. And if you watch up here in the histogram, if you don't know how to read one of these are how many pixels of a particular color there are. Like blue, yellow, green, red. You get the idea. If you hover over these parts in the histogram, you'll see right here where the ISO is. It says exposure, fill light, blacks, and recovery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock this up to get a lot of my pixels out of the darker area to, I'm going to say about half a stop. Let's go for a, you know what, I'm going to go for a full stop. We'll just do a 1. After I adjust my exposure, what you can do is you can turn, if you click this little arrow over here on the right and then click the little arrow on the left, all these little blue spots are going to be just textureless black, and all these little red spots are going to be textureless white. Well, I don't want parts of my wife's clothing textureless white, because that's part of the subject. We're the subjects. So this little recovery slider, when you start sliding this to the right, you'll see this little gray line start coming back, like to the left. And you see how her vest or shawl or whatever you call that thing, how it's not red anymore. That's what you're doing. You're pulling those details back out of that overexposed portion. So I'm going to give it a little bit more, and it's even pulling some details back out of our faces, so that's good. Next thing, sometimes I like to play with these sliders just to see what they're going to do. So if I turn my fill light all the way up, that's just kind of craziness. this photo is already pretty well lit, so I don't want a whole lot of fill light in it. Next I'm going to go down to my blacks, and most of these are going to be dark blue, and I'm not talking about these little spots here. I'm talking about like our shirt, the jeans. Those are the blues in the photo, but those are the darker colors. So I'm going to kick this up just a little bit, and you see how it kind of, it does bring everything up here back down a little, but you get a wider range of contrast in the photo, and then you can come down to contrast, and I am going to kick that up a little bit, because as you'll see, it kind of, it spreads all of these tones out across this histogram up here. Which, I'm going to reset that. I'm going to go about right about there. And I'm going to zoom in on our faces some. You know what? I don't want this exposure at +1. Let's do a 0.5. That's much better. So now I really don't need as much recovery, which I don't really care about this area back here because it's not the main focus. And plus, well, her shawl's a little bit overblown, so we'll kick the recovery up just a pinch. Fill light. Use a little more to get rid of those black spots. There we go. I don't want to rob this photo of all of this. If I go up too much further, it just starts flattening everything out too much. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong slider. Okay, I'm going to leave that about an 8. I'm going to zoom in over here, and I'm going to bump this clarity up just a smidge. Don't use a lot of clarity. I know you think it brings it in focus. You're like, oh, wow, it's a little bit clearer. Well, you start using too much clarity, and then you get this weird, I don't know, dull cell-shaded look. It's just, it's not very flattering. So, reset that, and I'm just gonna, I don't know, bring it up to about a 5. It's kind of good. I usually like to kick up my vibrance and saturation a little, make the colors a little bit brighter. Which that is way too much. So I'm going to go back and just see what the difference is. There's not a lot of difference, it's very slight, but I mean, you excuse the pun, but you get the picture. You want it to pop a little bit more. Next I'm going to come down to the sharpening. I'm not going to put a lot of sharpening on here because you can really screw your photo up if you over sharpen like that. You start getting this weird mosaic look, just like the clarity. Don't use too much. I usually over sharpen and then I dial it back a pinch. Probably right about there. You can throw some masking on it if you get too many sharp edges, but I don't think I really need that. I kind of like the crisp edges. That, and we're not super close up in the frame, so you don't notice as much. And that's the thing. If you think, oh, I'm using too much, I mean, zoom back out and look at it, and get rid of this stuff because it makes it confusing. If you don't want to edit with the, your underexposed areas and your highlight areas, you can always come up here and just hover over it, and it will show you what's going to be underexposed or overexposed. And some people would probably tell me that there's a little bit too much red in our faces. You can kick your saturation for red down just a little bit, but I think it looks fine how it is. I'm not editing this for a customer. This is just for us, so I mean, I think this turned out really well. But as you can see, right here, most of my tones are going to fall between this right here and the bottom, or all the way to the left. So that's really what you want. You really don't want a whole lot of things, a lot of pixels against this left side, because that's going to be all your darkness. So I mean, I could easily do that, and but then I start losing contrast. So I do want to kick this up just a little bit, and actually that's a little bit more of an improvement. But you don't want this, I mean, unless you're doing some kind of artsy thing that I don't understand, but you don't want to do that. So I'm going to knock this over to about a 5. Yeah, I mean, that looks pretty good to me. So the difference in your photo is from this when you started. As you can see, it's really flat. Most everything is kind of off to the left. And then that's what you finish with. And you can even crop it down if you want to, because I'm an idiot and I decided to wear shorts. So I could always crop it down to there. Voila, it still looks good. Well, the picture looks good. But anyway, if you like this video, give it a like. If you want to throw me a subscribe, that would be nice. If this helped you, let me know in the comments below, or if you have any questions, just ask them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer. I've been working on photos for a long time. And again, this isn't a thorough tutorial. This is just something someone asked me to do the other day. So I decided to make a video. Anyway, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. Thank you for watching.